Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Soo, your East Oakland advocate. Well, I've been asked, can you disarm a gun-toting criminal? And my answer is absolutely yes. But it takes a lot of time to perfect the timing and your distance. And that is so important. And that's where people doing it for the first time end up usually dead because they don't have the timing, they don't have the distance, and also they give up too early, thinking that the criminal is just going to take the gun back and allow them to live. No, 10 out of 10 times, bang, you're dead. So this is something that took me over a year to perfect my techniques. And uh, one of the simplest ones that I'm going to show you right now uh, still requires uh, timing and distance. And, but there are a lot of things I want you to take into consideration. If you use a real weapon, please, please, please make sure that the weapon is unloaded and verify that it is unloaded. And then the your person that you're practicing with also verifies that that weapon is unloaded and empty. And so um, that's in the case where you don't have a practice dummy gun. And the reason why I say you want to use an actual firearm, but you want to take all the safety precaution, make sure that it's absolutely unloaded, there's no magazine in it, nothing. And same thing goes for a wheel gun, or otherwise known as a revolver. Make sure that uh, the cylinder is absolutely empty. You can see through the cylinders before you snap it shut. And even then, pointing a gun at a person is not an intelligent thing to do at all, even when they're empty. These, but the reason why we practice with a real firearm now at my level, not at your level, at my level, at a beginner's level, you want to use the practice dummy rubber gun. They're readily available on Amazon for a few dollars. So I encourage you to practice with that at first. And then once you get to a point and you're comfortable with your distances and your timing, then you move to an actual real gun. But again, please, please, please make sure that the gun is unloaded and both people verify that the gun is unloaded before you start practicing. And so the simplest move that I use and that works, uh, but you have to do it with real intention. And so again, you put your hands up just like this. The perp is coming in on you. And for me, my absolute perfect position is 5 feet or less. That's where I want to get him in. Once I have my hands up, and then what I'm going to do is quickly drop one down and then scoop up underneath his elbow. So I'm going to get his arm is, I'm going to bend him right here. Literally, I'm going to bend him right here. So what I want to do is get my hand up inside that elbow, and the next thing that's going to happen is my other hand is going to slam the gun into the perp's own shoulder. And it's highly likely the gun's going to go off, shoot him in the shoulder, or at the in the event that it goes off earlier, it flies off in a direction that's not going to harm you. So I'm going to show you the hand motions, and we're going to start from this one. And number one, drop, scoop, and then we come back around. And what we're doing, we're pushing his arm. We're pushing his arm and we're bending it right around the wrist. And the reason why we want to lock that arm in, and at the same time, we're going to bend the arm, and then the top of your hand is going to come in, depending on whether it's a revolver or a pistol. If it's a pistol, this is easy. All you have to do is get your hand on top of the slide and around the lower body of the gun, and that automatically fouls the weapon. It cannot cycle uh, and load another round. So that's why you want, at this point somewhere, once you got your hand on top of that and start bending, that's when you want that gun to go off. Or in a best case scenario, you bend it. You're coming in with your arm and body weight and bending that gun at the same time into the perp's shoulder, and most likely it'll end up right there. But at least in the event that it doesn't, and the gun is now fouled, uh, so believe me, they're going to let go of it. I've been doing this a long time, and have done it several times, many times, disarming criminals and also terrorists who didn't, think that I was a danger. So anyway, once you get that gun, the gun has gone off and fired. What you're going to do now, because this arm is still up, because you're blocking the person, you've got him locked up. His other arm can't move because you've now disabled him with the bullet, and then also this arm is locked up because of you got his arm bent, so you control him. And then now what you want to do is just a quick jab, jab, jab. And then at the same time that you're doing, you're pulling back. You have the gun. You keep the gun in and the slide in your hand. If it's a revolver, what you want to do, you want to get your thumb around the body, the trigger, the actual trigger, the firing lever on the back, the hammer. And if the hammer's already back, you want to get your thumb in between the stop and the hammer. That's your target. And then again, you grab the top of the revolver and keeping the wheel from rotating. That keep, in the event that if you did everything right, that revolver will never fire. And at the same time, you're yanking that back as hard as you can, just like you want. If there's somebody back behind you, bam, you want to knock him in the face as hard as you can, somewhere between the eyes, below the eyebrows, but above the chin. That's where you want to hit him with that elbow if you have an incoming opponent who is not armed. But once you get that gun out of that person's hand, if you do it right, if the person's finger didn't come out of it at one of those early points before you yank it back, guess what's going to be in the trigger? That finger. Because you do it right, you can rip that finger right off with the gun in place. And then what you want to do, once you have the gun and the person's backing away from you, you're backing away from the person, you want to take that gun, clear the trigger, make sure that this hand just moves the finger slightly upwards, and then the easiest way to reset the gun is bang, this way, with the open hand, just hit the back of the weapon and push forward, resetting, cycling the gun, making sure that you see when you remove this gun, your other hand, and you're looking down, make sure that you see a round in there, or that the red dot on a lot of guns signaling that the cycle is and the breech is loaded. Look for that red mark. If you know handguns really well, that's great, because this is something that you don't want to attempt to do without a lot of practice. And also the other point being is that you need to know what type of gun it is, whether it's a wheel gun, how to disable it, if you can disable it, because there are revolvers that are hammerless. And so in the event of a hammerless, you're kind of screwed at that point. Uh, and it's best just up it. You can still do the maneuver, and then once you get that, like I said, you on a pistol, just hang on to the top slide, just bang, right there. That's the easiest way to reload a weapon, and that's if it has a magazine. The next thing is the quick takeaway, where your hands are up, and literally what you do, if you see the person, he's coming in on you, and he's right there, and your hands are up. As soon as he gets within a 12-inch circle here, what you want to do is quickly clap and twist, and make sure that gun's barrel, the muzzle, is pointed in a safe direction, and rip. Because what you're going to do, you're going to get your hands intertwined on the back of the weapon and the person's hands. The person's hand is not going to cover all parts of the upper portion, the firing portion of the weapon. So that's the portion that you want to wrap these fingers around, and then over the top, and rip backwards towards you. That takes the gun out of their hands, regardless what it is. And the worst thing that can happen is if you didn't take and point the muzzle properly, you might take one underneath the armpit there. But doing it right, that's why I say this takes hundreds of hours of practice. It took me a year practicing daily and diligently with a partner on this, so that we got the timing right. And I mean, the timing was that we got all the movements correct, and then he wasn't, my opponent was not able to pull the trigger until the weapon was in a clear direction, and we can hear the pop. And then later on, we started using those with a spring action powder ball, and so that it actually marked where I would have been shot. And so that's what perfected my timing and my technique. Those are just a couple of them. I actually took a gun away from a criminal back in 2018. Took away his Glock 19. He was just pulling it out just as his arms were coming up. My arms are coming out, uh, and I clamped the top of the back of the slide of his Glock 19, and yanked just like what I showed you. And he was so stunned, he didn't know what to do. He's looking at his empty hands, and I have his weapon pointed back at him. So it works, and it can be done, but you have to train diligently and know exactly what your limits and your timing and your distances are. So that's my tip for some simple gun disarmaments, and there are a lot more where that came from. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.